Welcome into an all-new edition of Daily Face-Off Live. The show, as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app, use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. We're live on the Daily Face-Off YouTube, looking for your inbox questions, and I'm back live on this show. Shout out to Frank, our producer Pat, Colby Cohn, Carter Hutton for covering me for a few days. But Frank, it feels good to be back.
Yeah, let's go. There's a lot that I'm going to say you missed because you were right in the thick of it all, but a lot happened over the last few days.
Yeah, it's actually been a surprisingly busy week. And as we head down the stretch, only about 2 weeks left in the regular season here, there's still a lot of big storylines to get to, including rivalry brewing or getting renewed. I know it existed before, but let's dig into that Carolina and Washington game. It is our nightcap, brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated, brought to you by JP Weisers. Boy, you can tell the rust is still on. Proud to be the official whiskey of the NHL, offering Canadian hockey fans a premium drink choice to enhance every game night experience across the country. JP Weisers, the official whiskey of game night. Frank, let's start with the story that has everyone buzzing, and you were the first one on it today. No supplemental discipline for Jalen Chatfield following his takedown during the fight with Connor McMichael. Why no supplemental discipline, and do you agree?
Well, first off, no supplemental discipline because technically nothing illegal happened here. There's no rule in the rule book that says you can't wrestle a guy to the ice. Now, I look at these still photos here and we see these posted from the Spit and Chicklets account. I don't love the look of them because it clearly looks like Jalen Chatfield is trying to essentially dwarf toss Connor McMichael. And it is a UFC style, WWE style throwdown. And I do think it's incredibly dangerous. Personally, I would find a way to apply a 1-game suspension to send a message to the rest of the National Hockey League that if you fight, that you can't do this. You cannot take down a player in this manner. However, A, there's nothing in the rule book, and B, I think maybe in the end I should defer to George Parros, who's been in dozens of NHL fights, and I've been in exactly 0, to understand some of the other nuances that come with it with regards to leverage and spinning around and trying to get position on someone. All those different things that go into a fight that I really can't articulate. And look, it's not going to be a suspension. George Parros has notified the teams involved that it won't be a suspension. And I see how they got there. Doesn't necessarily mean that I would have done it differently.
Yeah, and my thing initially, kind of going along the same lines as you, is I was like, this is such an easy example to set. It's the end of the regular season. I know the Canes are, no, I won't even say they're playing meaningful games. They're 9 back of the Caps. Like, the rest of the season doesn't matter. You could have very easily gone Jalen Chatfield, here's 3 games, and he might have just been like, damn, I lose some money, but I'm not missing out on important games. But again, if there's nothing in the rule book that says you can't do that, then I think maybe that's the change that needs to happen, is add a little wrinkle, like, as dumb as this might sound, intentionally trying to injure during a fight. I know that fight leads to whatever, but you get what I'm saying? Like, maybe just add this in.
Yeah, but you can't just say, you know what, we're going to give you 3 games because we feel like it. That's also not how this process works with precedent and history and everything else. And if the Department of Player Safety, which has multiple members of its staff that have been in NHL fights, decide that there's nothing here, then I guess I'm going to have to defer to them. And by the way, you mentioned off the top, nice rivalry brewing. These 2 teams play each other 1 week from tonight. And there is 0 doubt that aside from wondering if Alex Ovechkin's going to break the record between now and then, as he's now a hat trick away, these 2 teams could also be playoff opponents as well. Certainly in round 2, if the Carolina Hurricanes can get past the New Jersey Devils and the Caps win their opening series. So there's a lot brewing here that I kind of take this and inject this into a playoff series, and it goes to another level.
Yeah, I was taking some time this morning and just scrolling through Twitter, and it's like, man, I had no idea these 2 fan bases hate each other that much. It could be very good. Quickly, you touched on Ovi. He finds the back of the net once again. He is now 3 goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky for the most all time. I know we've talked about this a lot. There's really not that much more to add. I will put in that, again, if he does it in the next 2 games, he's he's played to this point 2 fewer games than Wayne Gretzky did. And I know Wayne was held goalless for his final 8 career games, but still, I've always been watching that. Like, if he could do it in fewer games than Wayne Gretzky played, I think that'd be pretty cool. But Ovi is 3 away. What did you make of the vintage Ovi goal last night? And also, I like Marc-Andre Fleury's comments the other day, being like, you do not want to be the goalie that's given up that record goal.
Okay, so first off, one thing of contention, and it's not directed at you or anyone else who said it, but it was Jason Gregor who correctly pointed out that Alex Ovechkin did not score in any of his, or sorry, Wayne Gretzky did not score in any of his final 8 NHL games.
Yep.
So he cannot catch him in the same number of games. That doesn't mean anything to me because I think no matter what, he'll have the record in hand. But beyond that, there's zero question to me who the greatest goal scorer of all time is, because Alex Ovechkin has done it against way more quality competition. Goaltenders are better than they've ever been. Defense is way better. Look, there's a million things that go into it, and it's not to take anything away from Wayne Gretzky, because I think he would tell you the same thing, that the talent level required to do this and consistently do it at this age. Wayne Gretzky scored 9 goals in his final NHL season. Alex Ovechkin's on track to be north of 42. He's got 7 games left to get 3. And look, it's every part of it is electric. This vintage Ovi goal, then getting to the next level now, a hat trick away. By the way, he played the Chicago Blackhawks a little more than 2 years ago, got a hat trick, and that was when he got to 800 goals. So, look, certainly possible that this record falls on Friday night when the Caps host the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, 2 of the Capitals' next 3 games on home ice as well, by the way. Just one more for the nightcap, Frank. We can do this one really, really quick. But the New York Rangers pick up a victory last night. The Minnesota Wild continue their sort of free fall down the standings, but a big comeback for the Rangers, who are just holding on there. Like, again, if they lose that game last night, it all of a sudden gets a lot more difficult because they only have 7 games remaining now.
Yeah, I'm not taking the Rangers seriously. Maybe I should. It feels like every time they get close, then there's yet another deflating, disappointing game. I'm sorry. I'm out on New York.
All right. Let's keep cruising along. Let's talk a little bit more about those Carolina Hurricanes, Frank, who punched their ticket to the Stanley Cup playoffs yesterday. They are pretty much locked in as the 2 seed in the Metropolitan Division and will, in all likelihood, face the New Jersey Devils in round 1. I think this Canes team really shouldn't have a lot of problems with New Jersey, Frank. They're 8-2. They seem to be one of those teams that's climbing and trending at just the right time. Honestly, betting wise, when that series line opens up, I might take the Canes in 4 or 5.
I could see it. They should steamroll the Devils with how these two teams have trended in opposite directions. And look, I think a huge psychological boost for this team, as odd as it sounds, trading away a true difference maker in Mikko Rantanen has freed up this team. They now have a collection of players, and you see it in every post-game speech from Rod Brind'Amour. He mentioned again last night how proud he is of this team. That they have a group of guys that really want to be there. And I think for that period of time when everyone was kind of looking over their shoulder, hey, we put a franchise record contract on the table for this guy and he's not signing it, he doesn't want to be here. You know, there was an awkward period of time where I think everyone was trying to figure out what that was like. And it also coincides with kind of the least productive times that the Canes have had all season long. So he gets shipped out. And then they're in a different place now. And I think they were freed up, a team without very many expectations entering the year based on the players that they lost in free agency, to then be, hey, this is a team that has a ton of expectations when Rantanen got there. This is their difference maker. This is the guy that they could get their hands on. And then all of a sudden he's gone and it's like, oh, the pressure is off again. What happens with the Canes? It's a really weird league that way in how it works. And who knows, maybe through all of this, losing a bunch of players in free agency, trading away Mikko Rantanen and getting all these futures, maybe this is the year that the Canes actually break through. You couldn't bet against it, because think of all the other teams that have had good teams for a long time, then finally won. The Blues, 2019, their best teams were like in 2011, 2012. The Caps won President's trophies. They break through in 2018, well beyond what anyone thought was the best team in the East. It's going to be a dogfight, a slobber knocker on the Atlantic side of the bracket. Not saying that they're going to be a favorite to even beat the Caps. They probably won't be. But if you told me that they did in advance to the East final and it was a coin flip to get to the Cup final, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
And that goes back to sort of their organizational philosophy. And this wasn't a Don Waddell thing. This was a Tom Dundon thing. It's just keep getting to the dance, right? That's been their mantra for the last little bit, is if you keep going to the playoffs, eventually, you're just going to start winning those coin flips, because that's really all it is, Frank.
A series of 7 games of coin
Yeah.
flips times 4 rounds. I mean, that's not, those aren't my words. Go back and listen to the Frankly Speaking episode I did with Canes owner Tom Dundon, directly out of his mouth. If he says it, I believe it.
Yeah, that was a great interview, by the way, if people want to go back and find it. Another thing, too, with the Canes, it's kind of funny to see Mikko Rantanen, this prized addition, this impact player, doesn't make an impact. Look at the other guys they've added, though. I mean, Logan Stankoven's looking good. He was 3rd star of the game last night. Mark Jankowski has 7 goals in 11 games since coming over, which, again, statistical anomaly. That's a blip, but like more than 3 times the amount of goals that Rantanen had in his 13 games. Taylor Hall has 7 goals in his last 10. Jackson Blake's playing on the top line, putting up multi-goal games. Like, man, there's just a lot in this lineup that seems to be going right now.
It's a weird sport, man.
Yeah, it is. Let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, who also punched their ticket to the Stanley Cup playoffs. 9 straight Stanley Cup playoff appearances for the Leafs, Frank? No?
No. So I saw it reported that it's a active record, 9 straight playoff appearances for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look, not being a hater here when I say this, but when you lose in the qualifying round in 2020, let's just remind everyone what a qualifying round means is if you win, you qualify, because there's 16 teams remaining after that. The Leafs lost. Does not count. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. This is the 5th one in a row. Now that we have that straight, now look at the Leafs, because they had an important win. I mean, look, they are now 3 points clear of the Lightning and Panthers. And this is all about winning the Atlantic Division, because it's gonna be up for debate and test, because they've still got critical games against these teams next week. That's probably going to decide who wins and who loses. The Lightning were in a spot where, had things gone a different way for them over the last 48 hours, that the Lightning would be in sole possession of first place in the Atlantic today. It's that close, and it means more to the Leafs, for a team that has really, really struggled early in playoff rounds, to get through with the best path possible. In saying that, Ottawa Senators potentially on tap. Linus Ullmark today smashing a stick on his way off the ice after a conversation with his goalie coach in the morning skate. Be fascinated to see what that means, if anything. But if you get the Sens in round 1, it's not really up for debate. Not saying it's a guaranteed win, but it's definitely an easier path than the Panthers or the Lightning in round 1. And so it means nothing more to anyone other than the Leafs. I think the Panthers and Lightning both yawn. Okay, we get who we get. The Leafs, it actually matters.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Leafs, I would say if they can go 5-2 in their final 7, that should be good enough to hold on to that top spot, considering, Tampa has the game in hand. The Leafs' remaining schedule, just sort of in order of strength of difficulty, according to Tankathon, is Carolina, Tampa, Florida, then they get Montreal and Columbus, and then Buffalo and Detroit. So you got to take care of those easy games. There are still no easy nights in the NHL, but for the Leafs, Frank, as they head into the playoffs, listen, a big part of it is, can your star players be your stars in the playoffs? And that's been a problem for Toronto. But another thing that's helping them is getting elite goaltending. And that's been something that's held pretty consistent for them this season. And that's a pretty big reason to believe in them, I think.
I'm not convinced. I guess I would say, like, okay, so we're still kind of somewhat debating whether or not it's likely going to be Stolarz in game 1. I think Craig Berube is not really one that wants to be rotating, but Joe Woll, you could certainly make a case for. It's been really good for stretches, and it's been inconsistent at other times. So I have a tough time saying that I really feel strongly about their situation in net. Is that wrong? I mean, it's better than I would feel if I were the Oilers, for instance, but it's still not, like, compared to what you might be going up against, Vasilevsky, Bobrovsky, Ullmark, they're still they're not getting the check mark in any first round matchup, any second round matchup that they play. And it's probably at no point in the playoffs are they getting one.
Yeah, and where I'm kind of wrestling with that a little bit is I just like that they have two guys who this season have shown that they have a pretty high ceiling. And if one of them falters, you just go to the other one. Now, I guess the counter argument would be that, hey, that's great. You have two good goalies. Look what happened to Boston a few years ago. You can only play one of them. And if Anthony Stolarz shits the bed in game one, pardon my language, and then doesn't play well in game two, and then you go to Joseph Wall, you're already down 2-0. So who cares how good your backup is? So I get it. I don't know. I tend to believe that they can get quality goaltending. I guess they've gotten
Yeah.
in the past before. I think of some of those series against Tampa, and they still found a way to lose.
So here's what I would say. To put a bow on this, if anyone thinks I'm a Leaf hater, I don't care who wins and loses. I just have to sneeze. I don't know why I'm not. I would say that in this case, this version of the Toronto Maple Leafs is the best version that they've been over the last 6+ years. I think their defense, I think to your point, their goaltending is better than it's been. They've got the best chance that they've had, but in saying that, I still view them as slightly under if we're ranking them with the Panthers and the Lightning in their own division. And that's
Yeah.
the tough part. So they're better prepared than they have been. We'll see what happens when it comes to the postseason where they've had their difficulties.
All right, Frank, let's play the overreaction game. I got a couple of questions for you, and I want you to tell me. You can give it a 1 and say, Tyler, shut up. Dumb thing for even bringing it up. Number 10 is, no, that's not an overreaction. I really do believe it. Let me start with the Buffalo Sabres, who have gone 7-3-0 in their last 10 games. And on points percentage now, they could pass the Flyers and the Penguins, and they could start moving. I mean, they've passed the Predators now, too, the Kraken. They're moving out of a nice lottery spot here, Frank. So from a Sabres fan perspective, the overreaction is this little run is going to convince management they don't need to make massive changes this summer. So it's a bad thing. Do you think management will overreact like that?
I'll say it's a 6 because I think deep down management knows that this team needs significant surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that no matter what, this run is a bad thing. The rise up the standings for who, for what, to quote Ricky Waters back in the day, for who, for what? Why win now? What's the difference? And then you're not just screwing yourself out of a draft pick, but you're also potentially, to your point, providing ammo to anyone that thinks that this team, which is not even being taken seriously by opponents, which is part of the reason why they're winning, is capable of being more. Too often in the NHL, teams that are in this spot look at results in late March and the first 2 weeks of April when everyone else has zoned out and the games don't mean as much on particular nights, that is some sign of future success, or that they can link it to, hey, we're just going to hit the ground running with the momentum from last season when everything starts back up again in October. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah, a month ago they would have had roughly a 19% chance of picking in the top 2. So again, 1 in 5 of moving up a little bit. Now you look at where they are; it's closer to 13%. And again, if they keep winning, it's going to get worse because Pittsburgh's right there, and even Anaheim could be caught. So,
The
second one I
Flyers are in
have
the
for you.
same category.
Yeah, they are. Another one I got for you in the Pacific Division, the Calgary Flames, and I mean the emergence of Dustin Wolf. It has people maybe viewing them a little bit differently going forward. And the Canucks are now, after their great season last year, on a downturn. How much of an overreaction is this sentence? The Flames will have more playoff appearances in the next 5 years than the Canucks.
I think it's probably, I'm going to say it's a 5. I'm going to say it's not an overreaction, not an underreaction. I really like, this is the tough part because I really like where the Flames are heading. I think they've done a really nice job drafting. Like, look at the guy that they signed yesterday to his ELC, Idar Sunayev. He's got an NHL ready shot. They grabbed him in the 3rd round, 80th overall. I watched him play and I'm thinking, this guy is electric. Like, he's got something going. And they get him out of school after 2 years, might not be quite ready to step into the NHL, but this team really struggles to score goals. And how do they find a way to increase their goal scoring and find difference makers? I love Dustin Wolf. At the same time, I don't like at all where the Canucks are trending. And I think they've got a lot to figure out, some serious, significant holes. However, they're starting with Quinn Hughes, who is a top 10 player in the world, and we still are not really sure what Elias Pettersson is. And if Thatcher Demko's healthy, plus they've got a great coaching staff, at least if they stay there, there's a lot of question marks. Could I see the Canucks back in the playoffs next season? Yes, I could. I have a harder time projecting what 4 years from now looks for Vancouver, let alone next fall.
Yeah, and we got an interesting Ask DFO about that. Maybe I'll save it for later because we got to get to our big segment, Frank. It's a new edition of Icebreakers, and it's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. You can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program. It all comes with their unbeatable pricing policy. You can check out their large selection of Canadian lab-grown diamonds and mined diamonds by visiting them online at charmdiamondcenters.com. Frank, your top 50 UFAs list is up now on dailyfaceoff.com. People can go check out the full list there, but let's start at the top, and it's your headline of the article. Future $14 million man Mitch Marner headlines the class. You really think Mitch Marner can get record-setting type of money?
I do. Look, we've talked before how incredibly difficult it is to find difference makers. They don't often become available. Think of the guys that are already off the board in this free agent class alone. Mikko Rantanen has been traded twice. Jacob Chychrun on track for 23 goals as a defenseman. He's re-signed. Igor Shesterkin in net, difference maker, re-signed. Shea Theodore, re-signed. Carter Verhaeghe, re-signed. All these guys, they never make it to market. And when you look at Marner and the complete game that he has, yeah, are there questions about his playoff productivity? For sure. Are they valid? Absolutely. But with the cap increasing the way that it is, to see him go from 11 and change or 11-ish to 14, it's not really a crazy jump. He's in a spot where he's potentially on track to break 100 points or likely to break 100 points for I think it's the first time, or he's been knocking on that door. This is a guy that plays at both ends of the ice. He's a fantastic addition to any team, and he's 27. So to think that with the rising cap that he won't get to that $14 million range if he makes it to market, the key is if he makes it to market, because open market conditions are different than renegotiating to stay with the current team you're with.
Yeah, and the Leafs obviously can offer that 8th year. So then again, similar to the Rantanen conversation, but like you start to do the math on what's 7 years and what's 8 years at certain money, and if you're viewing it as total dollars, which we know players tend to do, that can really change the calculation. The other Leaf on your board is John Tavares, and I think at some point earlier this season, at least I was going, hey, his production fell from 2 years ago to last year. Probably just a foregone conclusion. He takes that hometown discount with the Toronto Maple Leafs and he stays a Leaf. Now I'm sitting here going, man, he has 36 goals. Like maybe John Tavares would hit the open market. What's your read on the Tavares situation?
Well, he's got more goals than anyone in this free agent class, and he's aged really well. And he's a consummate pro who's transformed his game into being arguably the premier net front scorer in the entire league. And he's got a lot to offer. That said, I don't really ever think about what the open market conditions are like for him, because I think in the end, he's so focused on being a Toronto Maple Leaf and trying to help this team get over the hump that I think that, look, he's someone that is quite obviously getting a pay cut from his current scale. The question is how much. And now that the Leafs know what those numbers look like, I don't know if they can necessarily do it in reverse order where they can sign Tavares first and then figure out the Marner situation because of the way the cap is structured and because of the deals that they have. Yeah, they're going to have increased flexibility in space, but it's almost like you have to put the dominoes in the correct order. And so for that reason, I feel like it's a bit of a holding pattern. And I think letting John Tavares walk on the free agent market would be a mistake. And he's going to provide you quality depth. It doesn't have to be for a crazy long term. 2-3 years at a manageable number, I think, is a smart play for a guy who doesn't seem to be slowing down that much.
Two of the top 10, two of the top 5 are Toronto Maple Leafs. 3 of your top 10 are Florida Panthers, Frank. Obviously, Brad Marchand, new to the Panthers organization, but Bennett's there, Ekblad's there. Their cap situation is that they have $19 million in projected space with 10 forwards, 5 D-men, and 1 goalie on their roster. So you can kind of count up. You need 3, 4. You need to probably sign 5 players with that $19 million. Can they get all 3 of these guys back, you think, or is that a reach?
Yeah, Nate Schmidt's also way further down the board. Like there's a bunch of Florida Panthers guys that they're going to have some significant questions. If I were to take these ones and rank them in order of most likely to least likely to resign, I would say Sam Bennett most likely, then Aaron Ekblad second most likely, and Brad Marchand third. Unless Brad Marchand's willing to take a discount, which he wasn't really willing to do in Boston. Like, I think the numbers that were talked about were really reasonable. The Bruins didn't seem to think that that was the same, that they were in agreement on what that looked like. And if he wasn't willing to really budge off of that number significantly in Boston, what's the point now? You've ripped the Band-Aid off. Like, just go have a day, like have a ball and get what you can get. So I think the production increase from Sam Bennett, like this 50, I think is a new career high in the regular season. And when you look at his playoff pedigree and what he brings, like he's such an important piece. The tough part is figuring out relative regular season production and pay, which is the only time it counts on the cap, to then the larger postseason impact. He's a really tough guy to let go. And Ekblad, I think his game has waned a lot. You see the games played. He's been hit with injuries over the years. He's slowed down a bit. I just think that there's other things that the Panthers might be willing to do. I think the Panthers, in conversations to try and get Mikko Rantanen, I think that Carter Verhaeghe, newly signed, was one of the guys that they would have considered moving. Do they do something else with someone like him and free up more space and figure it out? They've got some things to figure out, because I think ultimately in the end, they'd like to improve this defense core. And it's going to be hard to do when you're taking someone like Ekblad and deleting him, potentially Schmidt and others.
Yeah, the cap situation, not exactly friendly. Let's move along, Frank. That's a wrap on this week's edition of Icebreakers. Let me throw this your way, Frank, for hashtag AskDFO. Marner, Besser, Tavares, Duchesne, Pionk, Bennett, Ehlers, Marchand, Provorov, and Ekblad are your top 10. I rattled them off really quick there. If you had to say which one out of those 10 is most likely to be rocking a new sweater next fall?
Besser.
Interesting. He's 2 on your board.
Yeah, I think he's a really consistent goal scorer. I think the way that this has played out with the drama, the comments, he had been really loyal to Vancouver. They squandered, I think, some of that and put him in a spot where, hey, his eyes were open to moving on anyway. And then when that was said, I don't want to say it closed the door, because anything's possible, but I think that made it more likely than not that he's moving on.
Let's move along to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Breaking news from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, every suspenseful moment in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app. Use the code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Couple of picks for you tonight, Frank, starting with 2 in the Tampa Bay game. Kucherov, 4+ shots on goal. Very nice, plus 160. He's actually had 5 or more in 3 of his last 5. So you could juice this up a little bit more if you really wanted to, and it would be plus 350. But I like Kucherov's shot prop, even though I like the Ottawa Senators, who have been a good home bet this year. I know struggling a little bit right now. They've kind of plateaued off, but Tampa Bay is under 500 on the road this season. And even though they've won 4 in a row, 3 of those games are at home. So I like fading Tampa Bay a little bit and taking a home dog in Ottawa. And 2 heavy favorites tonight that you can play together to get plus money. Edmonton and San Jose. Oilers have played back-to-back really good games here. Got Leon Draisaitl back for them as well. And Montreal taking on a Boston team that's free-falling here. And Montreal's on home ice. So play those 2 together at plus 103. Frank, garbage time. You know, I love asking you questions that only I know the answer to, because it may, the board's up already. I thought we were going to wait. I love this from our guy Dan in the Hockey Fights team, who researched Have you lost a coach's challenge this season? Only 2 teams have gone the year without losing a coach's challenge. Frank, we talked a couple weeks ago about stats and things we'd like to see tracked that maybe aren't like that publicly available. I would love to see some rundown numbers on how teams do with coaches' challenges. Also, shout out to Dan for picking hilarious logos.
Yeah, what is that logo next to the Leafs?
That's
Is that the Dallas Stars uterus logo?
Yeah.
Oh
Dan threw a
God.
twist on it. But like only 2 teams left this year that are perfect. That's a part of the game that, like, if you can kill it on the reviews, that's goals on or off the board.
I agree. Look, some of the most underpaid, underappreciated guys in the entire NHL are guys on the coaching staff, part of the video team. They do tireless work, cutting, clipping, slaving over the rules and their computers all game long. They don't actually get to watch the game live. If you're on the road, they're huddled in the coach's room off of the locker room, and you just hope that you have good internet. Like it's not ideal in most circumstances. So kudos to them. And they're the guys that these coaches rely on to make the call for them, because not a lot of them can see it on the bench in real time.
Yeah, there was a really cool clip going around a couple weeks ago of Jessica Campbell on the Kraken bench. And like as a play enters the zone, she was just boom right on her mic. And she was like, check that. Is that offside? Like, it's interesting to see the communication process. And as you said, yeah, they're basically never watching a game live, which is, again, another interesting wrinkle. But shout out to Dan and the crew at Hockey Fights, who were busy last night with that Canes and Capitals game. So the show comes full circle with that. Everyone in the YouTube, great stuff as always. That's a wrap on today's edition of the show. We'll see you right back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.